Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I'm Patrice. This is Craftable Things. Thank you for being here. Today we are going to create a design in Silhouette Studio to use with a laser. We will be using the Wecreat 20-watt vision laser. However, I'm going to show you how to create a simple SVG file that you can use with any laser. Okay, so let's get started. Now we are inside of Silhouette Studio and we're using the Business Edition version, and this version allows us to save our files as SVGs or PNGs and export them outside of the software. You can use any other graphic design software where you can create SVG files to do this. The first thing we're going to do is create a square, and this is going to be the base of our design, and we can create either a square or rectangle. I'm just going to create a square and we're going to just drag the shape once we select the shape tool on the left side of the screen, and that looks like that's going to be a pretty good size for me to create this puzzle. Now you can create it any shape that you want it to be. I'm going to actually change the shape to about 5 inches. Okay, 5 inches, we have a perfect square now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is I'm just removing that outline because I don't really like the outline to be there, so I'm going to remove that outline. Next, we're going to create a duplicate of that square. So we already have one part that's already ready for us to cut, and this is going to be the top part that we're working with. Another thing I wanted to show you all is that you can change your corners. So I used a round square, but you can change your corners and how round it is by moving those 2 red nodes in the corner, and it does it for all 4 corners. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some text, and I clicked onto the text box panel on the left side, and our puzzle is just going to say love. It is Valentine's Day coming up soon, and it's just going to say love. Next, I want to change the color of my font, and I'm just going to go with the black font so that I can see it on top of that blue background. We also need to change the font, and I am just going to click over on the right, this text style panel, and we're going to use a font called Ask Why. Now that I have our font selected and our text looks how I want it to look, those letters are nice and thick, I'm going to ungroup that text because I need to be able to move each individual letter around a bit more so that we can fill in that square. And so I'm just clicking onto all of the letters. I move the V and the E up, and I'm resizing them. Okay, so you can try to keep it proportionate by clicking on the one of the 4 corner nodes, or you can widen it out by clicking onto those center nodes. Okay, and this is looking good, but I don't need that O, so I went ahead and deleted that O, and I am going to stretch my L out a little bit more, and just you want to make sure your letters look pretty even. Okay, in place of that O, I want to create a heart in place of that O, so that's why we went ahead and we deleted that O. All right, so everything is shaping up pretty good. Next, I'm going to head to the shape panel again, and I'm going to select a heart there. Now you can pull in any heart that you want. If you get hearts from Creative Fabrica Design Bundles, you can get hearts from anywhere, but I just used the heart that is inside of Silhouette Studio. All right, so now I'm just rotating it and resizing it so that it can fit nicely within the puzzle. Of course, I want everything to remain within the boundaries of the square, because if not, once we get ready to cut this, it's going to cut through the actual square. So I want to make sure that there's enough space so that nothing's overlapping with that outer edge of the square. All right, so I'm just moving some letters around, moving it around a little bit more, and now I'm going to select everything that's in black, and I'm going to group all of that together because I don't want it to move out of the way. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some little circles so that fingers can go in between that and pull those letters out a lot easier. And I'm going to change that circle to another color so that it can be a little bit different, and I can see it a little bit better. Okay, I'm just removing the outline that's around it because I don't like to see it there, but that's a matter of preference. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to create duplicates of that heart, of that circle. You can either hold down your Option key and hover over it and drag to create the duplicate, or your Alt key if you're using a PC, or you can right click and do copy and paste. All right, so everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of this, and I selected everything, held down my Option key on my MacBook and dragged over. Remember, it's your Alt key and drag with a PC. Now I'm just going to select all of those red circles. I'm going to group those together, because what we're going to do is I just want to slice them. So I have the black selected. I'm going to head down to arrange, and I'm going to bring that to the front, okay, because I just want that to be sliced. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the red group and also the black group, and then I'm going to head over to the right and select the modify panel. Now that I have the modify panel selected, I'm going to select subtract all, and what that's going to do is that's going to remove everything behind the black. So the part of the red that's behind the black, it went ahead and removed that out of the way for me, and that's exactly what I want. I'm going to just select undo so that it can go right back into place. I just moved it out of the way so you could see it. All right, so now everything is grouped together. I went ahead and grouped all of that together, and then I'm going to remove the color, because when you're doing lasers, you don't need the color, but guess what I need now? I need an outline so that I could see it, right? So we put that outline back and we remove the color, and we're going to do the same thing for that square as well. Okay, when you're using your lasers, and it's just like any other SVG files, you're only concerned about those cut lines, and this will help me identify what needs to be cut and what I may use for engraving. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing for that base. Remember, both are the same exact size. That's why we duplicated that base, so that we can have it as the same size, because that's very important. And this is actually looking pretty good. So we pretty much have our cut files. If you didn't want to put anything, if you didn't want to customize it or put anything on here, you can go ahead and save it now at this point. But I also want to make some text on top of the heart. And so I'm going to type in always. I'm going to head over to the text box panel, open up my text style font or my text style panel on the right side, and we're just going to type in always. I want to put always on top of the heart. Okay, you can put a date if there's anything special you want to put on there, a message, you can do that, but for the purpose of today's tutorial, we're just going to put always on top. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the right, and I'm going to change this font. I want to use a cursive font, or a script font, so I'm going to go ahead and use a font called Absolutely Silent, and I love this font, and so we're just going to put always there. This part of the design is going to be engraved onto the heart. Okay, this part will be engraved onto the heart. And so I'm just going to go up to the top. We're going to remove the outline. I'm going to change this color to purple. Inside of certain cut softwares or laser softwares, they use certain colors to indicate, you know, the function of what you're going to do. But right now I went ahead and ungrouped that font and I welded it together. Okay, so it's all welded together. There's going to be no breaks in the cut, and this looks good. So now I'm ready to save it. I selected everything that I want saved, and I want to save selection, and then I'm going to save it as Love Puzzle. I did save selection because I have that other artwork on the page. Okay, and I don't want that other artwork saved. And we're going to change the format to SVG, and we're going to save it. Alright guys, so now we're inside of the Wecreat software. I have a piece of red acrylic inside of the machine. We are going to import our file, and I'm just going to go to File, select Import, and the file that we will be using is this one right here. And remember, it was a 5x5 square, so this should measure as a 5x5. Okay, so let's see if we have the correct measurement here, and we do. So we're looking right here and we see that everything is as it should be. Now for the bottom layer, we're going to cut this with the red acrylic, and this is going to be a cut file. So this is going to be a cut. I need to specify that in the software that we're going to be cutting. So I am going to head over to the right, and we're going to select cut. We have line engrave, fill engrave, and cut. We're going to select cut. Now I want to click the autofocus button so that it can measure the material, the thickness, and everything before we even get started. All right, you do have to do that whenever you are using your Wecreat. And the material I have it set to is 3mm plastic acrylic black. I'm going to scroll down and I'm actually going to change the number of passes from 1 pass to 3 passes. You can try with 2 passes, but I do find that 3 passes give me a really good cut. And that is all that I will be adjusting for now. Okay, so this is just going to cut the bottom square for us. We're going to have another piece of acrylic that we'll be using for the top. All right, guys, now we're at the Wecreat. I have my air filter on, and we're going to get ready and click start. Oh, cancel. Now I am going to have to close, or at least select all of that and select ignore for processing. And now we can click start. And this is going to take 5 minutes and 27 seconds for us to cut. I'm going to select send. Now we're at our machine. The light is blinking for us to press start. And we're going to click start. When cutting different materials with your laser, testing is very important, and your settings could be changed or may need to be changed depending on the usage of your laser, if it's dirty, if it's clean, those sorts of things. So this took about 3 passes, but I do want to remind everyone to always check your settings, do a little test of your material prior to you starting any major project, because you don't want to waste a large piece of wood or acrylic or any material you may be using. Alright guys, let's see how this cut. So nice and clean. Did you all see that? Alright, so this is the square that we have, and this is going to be the base or the bottom of the puzzle. With that red cut out beautifully. Now we're going to place a piece of pink for it inside. So we're just going to place this in here just like this. And close it. And we're going to process the top. Now for the top of the puzzle, you can use the same color material that you used for the bottom. Generally when I'm using wood, I use the same type of wood for the top and the bottom. And then the letters, I'll just either paint them or use acrylic markers or use a different type of material. But you don't have to use different like I'm using. I'm using different now just to show the different colors that can be used with a diode laser. And so we're using a pink for the top layer, a lighter pink color, and I am going to continue to use just 3 passes with this. And as it's going, I can see that it already looks really, really nicely. Those little side lifts, they fell right through, so I'm pretty happy about that. Also, you want to stay pretty close to your laser. Don't leave it idle. Don't walk out of the room. Anytime this laser is going, I always stay very, very close by because you just never know. I have had acrylic catch on fire before in one of my diodes, and so after that, or even during that time, I was always very cautious and watchful. But just remain watchful of your laser whenever you're cutting any material inside of it. But this is looking pretty good. Alright guys, so I'm all done, but I made a mistake. When I was moving the file over on the canvas inside of the software, I forgot the other 2 half circles. So I need to cut out those 2 half circles. So I'm not even going to open up the machine. I'm going to head back to the software and just place those circles where they should be. But it looks like it cut really good. If you notice those little smaller half circles on the L and the heart, they fell through, so that means that they cut through very nicely. So I'm very hopeful, and I kind of know that the other parts cut as well. That worked out really good. Just remember to refresh your laser screen, the camera, so that you can get an exact picture of what that looks like on the inside so that you can make those adjustments if needed. All right, guys, so we're all set. And we're just going to lift this up. For the most part, everything fell out. Everything cut good. I can tell. Look how easy that comes out. How easy this comes out. And then our bottom part, that just needed a little bit of a push out, but that was mostly because of the masking. But that looks pretty good. So let's grab our L and our E. So for the engrave, I can go ahead and kind of fill that in with white. But we had pretty clean cuts. All right, y'all, so I'm going to save those pieces that cut out, the L, the heart, the V, and the E. I'm going to save that for another project because I can use it for another project. Even if I made another puzzle, I could use that if I wanted different colors. But I went ahead and placed another piece of acrylic inside of our laser. This is a darker, more vibrant piece of a color pink. And so we're going to see how this cuts. It cut pretty good. However, I did need an extra pass. So 3 passes did not work really well for me with this color pink. I did have to do 4 passes. Maybe a 5th pass might have been possible, but I went ahead and redid it. And when I recut on top of it, the extra 2 passes, it did char my material some. So that's how I know that I did way too many passes. So I think 4 passes was really good for this, but again, you need to test it out. Just because you have similar colors, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to cut the same way. So always test out a very small piece of your acrylic. I usually do a little circle in the corner just to see how many passes it will need. But we're done, and this looks good. Everything came out, but it is a little charred. It's more charred on the back, but nothing that I couldn't clean up, but it was a little charred. It went a little bit too much. Alright guys, now we're ready to put the puzzle together, and I have my B7000 to glue it on. We're going to put a little bit of acrylic paint inside of that engraved area just to give it a different color. And I do like to do this with the masking still on because you won't have to worry about cleaning up any extra paint that may get on the actual acrylic itself. And so I'm literally just doing this with a piece of paper towel. You can get a paintbrush to really get into there, or a sponge to really help you get inside of that engraved area, but that's what we're doing now. And I like this engrave. It engraved really deeply, and so I really like that because it's not really like a surface engrave. So I'm going to let that dry for a little bit, and then we're going to get ready to remove the masking. I'm using some Gorilla duct tape, and I love this stuff because it helps me get that masking off so easily. So I'm just placing a little piece on there, and it's going to catch that masking, and I'll just start to peel the masking off that way. So we're going to do this for all of the parts that have the masking on. Alright guys, so I have the masking off the base and the top, and now I just need to put that together. I'm going to be using this B7000, but an alternative is 3M double-sided adhesive tape that works really well. But I didn't use it this time because I didn't want it on the inner parts of those letters, so that's why I did not use it. So I'm just using B7000, and this works really good for me too. I also use an acrylic glue, and I'll link all of the different adhesives that I use for my acrylic projects below in the description. But this B7000 is going to work really good. This just needs time to dry. With the double-sided adhesive, the 3M, you don't really have a dry time. Like, it's just going to, once you stick it on, it's stuck. But this needs to sit, and it needs to dry. So I'm just going to let this sit in place and dry. Alright, so we removed all the masking. Now we just have to remove the masking from the heart, and the ink dried onto the acrylic, or the paint dried onto the acrylic. I did get a little bit of water and remove some of that char on those letters because, again, there were just too many passes, and it had already cut through and it was still cutting. So just be cautious of that. Definitely do your test. But we're removing this, and look how this looks. It's looking so good. Keeping the masking on is key when you're doing something like this because you don't want to have to clean off paint from the top part of your acrylic. You really don't. So I'm just removing those inner parts of the loops, and everything is looking good. Like it looks amazing. I love how this came out. I love how this came out. Now there are acrylics where you can engrave, and they're two-toned acrylics. This one isn't one of those, so that's why I had to use the paint in order to make sure that always stood out, but everything looks good, and we're just putting it back together. And yeah, I love it. As you see, like those letters they're fitting inside, but a little loose. Too many passes. Okay, y'all, we are all done creating an SVG for our laser and completing the project, and it came out really, really nicely. The only thing is that I cut this too many times. I had too many passes, so I think 4 passes for this particular color worked great, but it's very important to check your material to see the best way for you to cut it and how many passes you need to prior to starting your project. But look how this looks. If you are interested in creating your own laser cut SVG files, I would recommend practicing a little bit more, learning lasers, like learning how to layer it and everything like that. And then you can create even more intricate files than this, right? So this can be used with wood. Like I can use that same file to cut a wooden puzzle. And the wooden name puzzles are very popular, especially for kids. So you can certainly make one of those to gift it, or if you're looking to sell it, you can do that too, but I will look into all regulations for selling any children's products. You need to definitely go a little bit deeper when it comes to selling kids things. But y'all, this came out really good. I love how this came out. The engrave on this acrylic looks really good. And we have us a two-tone love puzzle. So many different fun things you can do with this. I do have a live that I did a few days ago. I will link that below if you are interested in seeing that live, but this is a little bit shorter. If you're interested in any of the products that I used, please check the description. I have everything listed there below. Hopefully this was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching. Head over to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok and join Craftable Things there. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, make sure you click the subscribe button, and don't forget to like this video on our way out. But that's it for today, y'all. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.